Chapter 8, Earth Inception. Then God said, Let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Genesis 1:26. In whose image were earth humans made? Many of Earth's oldest scriptures imply that human development was guided by God who descended from the sky. Even anthropologists are aware of the unusually fast development of Homo sapiens. Some anthropologists estimate that the species Homo sapiens appears to be millions of years ahead of schedule. Whereas the evolutionary development between advanced Australopithecus and Neanderthal took more than 2 million years, evidence has been found on Earth that Homo sapiens, or Cro-Magnon, emerged approximately 35,000 years ago. What is even more intriguing is that while the remains of man are continually discovered, archaeologists have found remains from an even earlier Homo sapien in the area of Western Asia and Northern Africa. These remains date back 250,000 years before Cro-Magnon man. It should be stated here that Homo sapiens has no evolutionary precursor. Nothing evolved into Homo sapiens. The species simply appeared. Would extraterrestrials be interested in having a hand in Earth evolution? If so, what would they gain from Earth human? Perhaps it was a way for them to accelerate their own evolution. It seems evident that there were three main groups that orchestrated the Earth inception. We identify them as the Founders, a Lyran group, and a Syrian group. The Founders facilitated the inception from a point of non-physicality and were the overseers of the entire project. Unaware of these non-physical influences, the Lyran physically orchestrated the inception and employed a Syrian group to assist. Each group had its own motivation for their own involvement. Though the motivations were different, the goal was the same, the creation of a humanoid race on Earth. As stated earlier, the Pleiadians involved themselves in Earth evolution for their own benefit. They felt that if they interacted with humans, not only would they be able to be part of the development of their previous home, but they could learn about negativity and integration without having to incarnate directly into a world that was playing out those ideas. They were persuaded by the Lyran group, who were well aware of the genetic compatibility of the Pleiadians with the new Earth humans being developed. The Lyran group, a combination of various Lyran races, was always experimenting. Just as humans have certain instinctive drives, such as procreation, these extraterrestrials carry their own drives which emulate their creators, the Founders. The Founders' offspring instinctively carried on with genetic seeding. These Founders were well aware that inbreeding would cause a race to die out, and thus they continually sought new stock to keep the gene pool mixed. There was another primary Lyran motivation for their involvement with Earth. After eons of conflict within the Lyran offshoot races, Vega, Sirius, Orion, etc., they were tired of creating civilizations that were polarized and failed to exist peacefully. They were determined that Earth was to be a planet founded on integration rather than polarity. The Lyran group felt that perhaps they needed all along was a planet whose beginnings were integrated rather than one that was carrying the seed of polarity from other star systems. With this in mind, they began formulating their rigid plans for the Earth inception. The Founders, however, had other plans. They knew Earth was possibly going to be the final ground for healing the Orion drama, and therefore must remain polarized in order to resolve the conflict. The Founders knew that the Galactic family might finally learn about integration through the experience of polarity resolution on Earth. The Founders allowed the Lyran group to carry out their plan because they knew it would eventually support the cosmic plan. As for the Syrian group, their motivations were much closer to home. They considered Earth to be within the Sirius trinary star system. Thus they believed they had a right to manipulate Earth genetics. The Syrians were interested simply in establishing primitive humanoid races on Earth that could serve as manual laborers while they expanded their colonies to include Earth. Thus they supported the Lyran project with their own goals in mind. The Earth Inception project began. For many thousands of years during the early phases of the Earth Inception project, the Lyrans watched the developing primate race on Earth with cautious eyes. These Lyrans, as well as others, have been known by the Hebrew term Nephilim, erroneously translated as giants. Nephilim literally means those who have come down. Genesis 6:4 states, "The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. There were the heroes of old, men of renown. The original Hebrew term translated as renown is Shem, which literally means airborne vehicle, a possible rocket ship. Hence, they were the heroes of old, people of the rocket ships. Occasionally, they took samples and made slight alteration to the DNA structure. At critical points in development, they began inserting genetic material from the Pleiadians and other groups into these primates. Over long periods, it became increasingly apparent that evolution was accelerating at a rapid rate. When this became evident, the crucial prototype experiments were initiated. The story of Adam and Eve is one of the few legacies left that can subtly remind humanity of its beginning. The tale contains many symbolic references to the saga that occurred concerning the type of species who were to inhabit the earth. As stated, the Lyran group wanted a species founded on integration. Therefore, they felt that the species must have no knowledge of polarity or good or evil. They strictly controlled the environment of these new humans so that they would stay focused on development as perfect vehicles of integration. They did not want the new humans to become, like them, polarized. What the Lyran group did not acknowledge was they were always restricting choice on the part of these new humans to manifest their own destiny. After generations of working with primates and extraterrestrial genetics, the Lyran group developed a human prototype whose meaning, of the earth, has been translated into the name Adam. The Adam prototype was introduced on planet Earth to test its environmental adaptability in many areas of the planet. There were many Adams. When this prototype was satisfactorily adapted, the Adams were recalled. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. Then he took one of his ribs, or part of his side, and closed up the flesh at that place. Through cloning and genetic engineering, a female prototype was created, that is translated as Eve. Both were returned to the environment and watched closely. Out of their desire to create a species that had no knowledge of polarity, the Lyrans instructed all who tended the prototype to forbid them knowledge, to actually deny them the right of choice which all divine beings are granted. Hence, one can see the meaning of the statement by God, "From any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, polarity, you shall not eat, for in that day that you eat from it you shall surely die." The Syrians, working with the Lyran group, disagreed with this philosophy. They felt the Lyrans' personal desire for creating the species was misaligned with the right of humanoid forms. These Syrians, although wanting to develop the human race for their own purpose, discovered they had a genuine affection for the new humans. Despite this polarity, they decided to intervene, thus inadvertently giving humans the opportunity to choose. The Syrian group warned the humans, and the serpent said to the woman, "You surely shall not die, for God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eye will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Being presented with choice and the need for a decision involving their existence, the human achieved third-density consciousness. When the humans realized that they had been deceived by God, they opted for knowledge. And once they made the choice to receive knowledge of polarity, they were fully anchored in the physical. They now possessed ego, or knowledge of I am, and became self-aware. Then the Lord God said, "Behold, the man who became like one of us, knowing good and evil polarity. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." Needless to say, the Lyran group was not pleased. In their anger, they denied humans knowledge from the tree of life, divine heritage. The human race was thus forced to develop within the knowledge of its connection to the galactic family and the whole, and it would truly be a challenge. To ensure that the humans did not seek this knowledge, the Lyran group employed some precautions. At the east of the garden he stationed the cherubim, and the flaming sword which turned every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. They left humanity its heritage, the legacy of Orion, symbolically portrayed as a sword, without leaving any knowledge of its resolution. There are suggestions in the ancient Sumerian texts that the cherubim are actually mechanical or robotic devices, which in this case protect the tree of life. What is the literal translation of the tree of life? In Sumerian, the word for the tree of life was Gish-til, Gish-til. Gish meant a man-made device. Til meant, and still does today in contemporary Hebrew, missile. Instead of an actual tree, this may mean the vehicle to life or a spaceship. In Sumeria renderings, there are clear depictions of rocket ships, as well as men saluting these rocket ships. It seems clear that the action by the gods of stationing the cherubim to keep humans from the tree of life was actually denying the humans the knowledge of their heritage. No longer would the earth human be allowed to openly intermingle with the gods or leave the planet with them. Humans were banished from the heavens. What happened to the Syrian group who interfered with the plans of the Lyrans? By interfering, they became energetically tied to the development of Earth. They have always had many tricks up their sleeve, and in this case, they got the last laugh. When working with the Lyran group during the genetic program, they inserted a latent DNA code within the human cell. This code is triggered by an accelerating vibration that occurs when a civilization begins to evolve spiritually. As Earth accelerates towards self-awareness and fourth density, which is occurring presently, the code is activated. Once activated, the human race unwinds its limited vision like a coil until the expanse of all that is becomes visible. It was their way of allowing humanity to eat from the tree of life after all. From these early seeders of planet Earth, humanity has been left a challenge. As stated, the children who were seeded usually carry the genetic code and deep-seated attitude of the parents. If indeed Earth was seeded from a point of inequality and lack of free will, might this not explain why humans of many races today still carry an underlying belief in the superiority of the Caucasian, Aryan race, the Lyran group? Could it be that the very roots of racial bigotry go as far back as the seeding of the planet? The earliest text available to the seeker certainly suggests this. The Sumerian records give reference to the black-headed ones, who worked the mines of Africa for the gods. If this is the case, that humanity carries the pattern of its forefathers, then this challenge is just the beginning. Breaking free from this God spell that has been cast over humanity may be the key to the liberation of the human race on Earth. In Earth past, the human race has received conflicting signals from the gods. There were times, some of which are recorded in the Sumerian text, such as the Great Flood, when humans were abandoned and left to die on the planet, while the gods they trusted left in their spaceship. During these times, some gods illegally rescued chosen humans. This has created an emotional encoding within the human species during times of crisis. The encoding remembers both of these patterns, and a struggle is activated between the fear of abandonment and the joy of salvation. It is imperative that the human race resolve this dependence on the gods and become self-sufficient. On present-day Earth, extraterrestrial groups whose encodings are rooted in the past still promise salvation. They come to humans as physical space beings or speak telepathically to those who can hear their frequency. Often they name various Earth humans commanders or chosen ones, and continue to tempt the human ego to perpetuate its own feeling of superiority. Though these off-planet groups mean well for the most part, they continually perpetuate the gap between the fear of abandonment and the joy of salvation, thus encouraging the separative belief in elitism. As humans take their own power and enter planetary adulthood, these remnant groups will transform as well. The majority of other extraterrestrial groups have learned from their past actions and desire a resolution of this conflict once and for all. From the point of view of the founders, the plan was continuing perfectly. The Lyran group needed to play out the scenario for their own growth. These early extraterrestrial gods left behind clues on Earth that will eventually assist in awakening the planet to its heritage. As humanity awakens to this knowledge, it will begin to bring into play the tools that are needed to resolve the Orion drama. Resolution comes from allowance. If the human race can truly allow diversity within unity from a point of non-judgment, heaven on earth will be created.